everybody. It's Cassie. Sorry I'm late. We were having small technical difficulties with Skype. I just blame Skype.
Yeah, Skype.
Today I have two guests. They're both the co-designers of a game called Capital Vices, which is an 18-card game coming to Kickstarter, and they will be using the Game Crafter for film. Actually, the Game Crafter's had a couple of different, like their hands involved in a couple of different steps with the game, from what I gather. But before I go, let me introduce. We have Corey. Is it Andalora? Did I pronounce that?
That's right. You got
Yay,
it.
okay. And then Donnie Coleman. Both of them have designed Capital Vices together. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the game? I know it's 18 cards, plays 20 minutes. It's 1 to 4 players. And I know you wanted to do something about the 7 deadly sins. So tell me about it a little bit.
Yeah, so like you said, it's an 18-card game. Plays 1 to 4. What you do is each player has a color in the game. So you have what we call the coffer in front of you, mm-hmm. and there's resources, and they're two-sided. So and they also have a color. So like this is the blue money, and on the other side is food. Okay. So all of the resources, there's 4 different colors, and the colors are the 4 different colors is blue, red, white, and yellow. All have food on one side, money on the other, and they're distributed between the player coffers. And the goal of the game is you lay out the 7 actions that they correspond to the 7 sins. Okay. And the first action will always be the sin for the round. So let's say it's greed for that round. That means in that round, you don't want to be the one caught with the most money at the end of the round, because then you would be the greedy one.
I like that.
Then as you go 1 card at a time, and I can show one of them here. So like here's this is envy, for example. Can you see that all right?
Yeah, a little bit. It's just the art looks like it's dark art.
Yeah. So they all have an action on them, and what you'll do is you'll take the action on your turn. So they go left to right. You take the action on your turn. They all have something to do with moving resources around to the different coffers. Okay. Again, your goal being to avoid sin at the end of the round. So this one that I just showed you, envy, is take from 2 coffers and move to a 3rd coffer. So you take 1 resource from each and move them to the 3rd coffer on your turn. And you can pick from anybody's coffer and move to anybody else's coffer. Okay. So it's not just your own. Then you flip it over and then proceed clockwise until all the actions are taken. At the end of the round, you determine who's the sinner for the round. That person gets no points. They get 0 points because they were sinner. Okay. Everyone left that didn't sin, and you could have multiple sinners. Anyone left who didn't sin scores points. And so what you do is you calculate your vice tally. And the vice tally means count 1 for every color that remains in your coffer. So let's say I had red and yellow, that's 2. Okay. And then count 1 for food and 1 for money. That's your vice tally. Whoever has the lowest vice tally, and that includes the sinner, if for some reason they happen to have a low tally, whoever has the lowest tally gets 2 points unless you're the sinner. So don't sin, lowest vice tally is 2 points. Anyone else without sin gets 1 point. So you have a bit of a boost by being the most virtuous in the round.
Okay. So
you would then reset. All the resources stay where they are. Oh, okay. Reset. Next player becomes the new first player. You do a new 7 cards arrangement, new sin, and play until someone scores 7 points.
Mm-hmm. And so this is all with 18 cards. Are all of the cards double-sided, or just some of them are?
So all of the resources are double-sided, and the actions remind you what the sins and virtues are.
Oh, okay, cool. And
there's also
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to mention the scorecards. The scorecards are also double-sided, so this is how you keep your score. You usually point your current score towards you, so everyone starts out with 0, and then you progress until you get to 4, which is on the other side of the card, and then you get to 7. So everything, because of the nature of having limited 18 cards, we tried to sort of pack the most we could into it.
And with that, the box itself is the first player token.
Oh, that's great. Look at that. That's handy. I love the way that whenever I hear about 18 card games, how they utilize every aspect of the card, because, like you said, you're so limited with the components. So you don't want to be using tokens to keep track of points, because all you have is this little tuck box. And so I think that's cool, that the way you have the score tracker and everything. And I just like the way when all of the 18 card games use double-sided cards. It's always so cool.
Yeah, thanks. And also the box itself has we talked about it having the first player token or being the first player token, but it has the rules inside. It explains the iconography.
Oh,
it
look
has
at
like a way to like mnemonics for knowing your vice tally and all that stuff.
That's
so
great.
we really used as much as we could of this box.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like how you even use the little flaps. I don't see anyone ever use the flaps. That's great. So how did you come up with the 18 card game? I believe it had to do with a contest, right? With the Game Crafter?
So that's right. So before the contest, I always had this idea of a 7 Deadly Sins game. I thought it lent well for an interesting theme. And then whenever we do a game, we want the theme to be really tightly coupled to the mechanics of the game. So that meant we were, resources, the sins, it just kind of came naturally. Everything is meaningful: greed, money, gluttony, food. So we wanted to make everything really tightly tied. And it started off as this kind of larger deck game where you were trying to, it was kind of like hearts almost. You were taking tricks where you were either taking food or money.
Okay.
And at the end of the game, you wanted some, but not too much, because if you had too much, you were sinning. And it just didn't quite work. And then when the contest came along and Donnie and I kind of joined up, it allowed us to have laser focus on the mechanics and really, like you said, tighten everything, use everything to full advantage of the game. And so it just made us kind of chip away at it. We started off kind of, it was a pattern building game, and it still is, but we were trying to say, you'd have to have one resource there and one resource there, and if that happened, you get a point. But it was too many rules to remember.
Gotcha.
And so we just kept iterating and tightening up the mechanics and making it simpler where, look, I just don't want anything. No resources makes me virtuous because I've given it all away.
Okay. No, it's like it makes sense, and I like how you're trying to use the way when you were first explaining the sins, how you utilize the mechanics with what the essentially is the theme. I think that's really, it's like a really rich way of making a game. You know what I mean? If it's so the theme wasn't just slapped on; it was really thought into the mechanics and everything. So I think that's pretty cool. I want to show. If it's okay, I'm going to show the Game Crafter version of the game, and then I'm going to show your Kickstarter page now, because you're bringing this game to Kickstarter tomorrow, right? Do you have a time?
That's right. That's tomorrow.
What time are you launching? Have you decided?
Ooh, I don't know. We don't know. Yeah, let's put it this way. It's going to be in the morning, Eastern time.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I've done one Kickstarter, and that was the thing. It's like, do we do it at 9 o'clock? Do we do it at 10 o'clock? I don't know. What if people are still sleeping at 10? It was like we made it this huge thing, and it wasn't a huge thing. It's just like, just press the button.
Those are the exact 2 times that are like in my head. So
just do 9:30, and then you don't have to think about it.
Oh, good
wow.
idea.
Well, you've heard it here first.
Yeah, right. All right, let's see. I'm going to go to the web here, and this is the original the Game Crafter version. And is this what you submitted to the contest?
That was our entry in the contest, yes.
Okay, cool. So it has, let's see, 8, 3, and 7. Okay, so those were the 7 sins, and then the 8 cards are the resources, and then... the hook box. What was the 3 cards?
So the 3 cards are the scorecards that we showed?
Okay. So this is now up to 4 players in the game. So is there just, how did you make the game fit up to 4 players? Is that a new thing you added in?
So the game always had 4 colors, and originally it was a 3-player game, and then there was sort of a neutral resource, and that neutral resource was tied to the sin of pride. And we realized that, if we just have that neutral resource be the 4th player coffer, and then one of the sins, pride, now instead of being the person with the most neutral resource, it's the person who has the most of the color of the person sitting across with them. So now it kind of balanced out. So there's a sin for left, sin for right, sin for across.
Okay.
So it just kind of naturally lent itself to it. The only thing missing was that 4th player card.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of times for 18 card games, they'll make this up to 4 players by having people be on teams. This is all, everybody's against each other. It's totally 4-player competitive.
Yes.
So it plays one player. How does the solo play go?
So the solo play is a version of the game that we came up with for this Kickstarter. We noticed a trend that a lot of gamers want solo play. So we went back to the drawing board. How can we make this a solo playable game? And it basically plays. You play with three. You do a 3-player setup almost. So 3-player coffers still. Okay. And the goal is to make sure that every single coffer hits 7 points at the exact same time. You're being virtuous across the community. Everybody is progressing at the same rate. So if every coffer hits 7 points at the same time, you win. If any one of them hits 7 before any other, you lose.
Oh, so I've never heard of that kind of like balancing aspect with such few components, especially. That's a pretty cool idea to come up with. A lot of times you'll hear about there's like an automated opponent or right. You're trying to play on teams against each other, but that's a really cool idea. Ooh, now I'm.
Yeah, so we that was one of the ones we considered, but ultimately we thought it better to be, hey, the game is about a community trying to thrive together. Let's go all in with that. And so, and it's also this interesting mechanic where in order to slow one of the coffers down, you have to purposely make that one sin so that the other ones can catch up.
Right. That's really interesting. So it is very, so it's like, I just hit my computer. That's like a nice puzzle almost. So
yep.
That's really cool. I'm really into solo games, and I'm really into abstract games and puzzly games, and so now I'm like, I'm curious now. You got me hooked. Okay, so
cool.
So we were looking at the Game Crafter, but let's go and check out what people are going to see tomorrow, which is the Kickstarter. So we have information about the game. There's a little bit of card art here. And, you got so that's set up for 3 players. And I see those are all the 7 sins in the middle.
That's right. That's the 7.
Cool.
Yep. You can see the art change from the frame, give you a nice full picture there. So now we limited the frame, and it's a full bleed card now.
Oh, yeah, I see. Okay, cool. Yeah, I see what you were going with the picture frame thing, and now that's pretty cool that you went full art so you can actually see what's going on. That was a pretty big border. Let's see. So, and then you've got a great how to play. Okay, that's awesome. Yeah. I'm just scrolling through so people can see if they wanted to find out what, they had any questions tomorrow. You have the rules available, so anybody wants to take a look at the rules, they're set up right there. Ooh, and you've got a video playthrough for anybody that's more visual. What's in the hook box. And I saw now this is a Break Kickstarter thing. I want to get down to that information. And it's like down in the rewards area, right? I think where you get some add-ons. There it is.
Look at the add-ons, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about Break Kickstarter, because I don't really know too much. I know it's like become a thing, but I don't really know much about it. So tell me all about it.
So Break Kickstarter was, I think it's a promotion that they came up with to try and get people to think outside of the box.
Okay.
And that really appealed to us because, the game itself is so small that it really requires you, if you want to make any innovations or changes, to think outside the box.
Right.
And that's kind of just right up our alley. So we said, you know what, Kickstarter is going to be promoting this sort of new paradigm shift, and we want to be a part of it. So that's kind of where we jumped in on it. And it's really about not doing things the way they've been done before on Kickstarter. For example, we don't have stretch goals.
Oh, okay.
Not that there's anything wrong with stretch goals, but we wanted to try and do something a little bit different, something that hadn't been done, that we hadn't seen before. So we came up with this idea to sort of get the community in on modifying the game. Like we said, we knew that the game could be a 4-player game, so we said, you know what, let's make it a 4-player game for everybody. But what else could we throw in there? Because the hook box can actually fit 20 cards rather than just the 18 or 19. Yeah, and you want to talk about the variants?
So on top of that, so we showed you that we have the 7 action cards, and they're very specific actions. But to give some variety to the game, we came up with this concept that you could swap in a variant action. So it would be the same sin, but the action would be slightly different than what the base game is.
Okay.
And you could, I think we're talking about, you ever play Sushi Go? How there's now Sushi Go Deluxe, where you can kind of swap in the different ingredients. Kind of like that, where you take actions and you replace them with different actions, still 7 for the game, but you're going to give it a little bit of variety. And we have like 35 different action ideas that we've been playing around with, but we want to, again, let the community decide what ones we should use. So we're going to put those ones up to a vote per sin and say, here's the ones we came up with. Which ones do you want? And the one with the most vote is going to be included in the variants. And the variants are an add-on pack that you can get on top of the base game.
That's really cool. I like that. Was it really hard to come up with that many different actions?
Actually, no. It was hard to edit down to good ones because there is so much that you can do that may not make sense with the game. So we sort of had this proliferation of ideas, and we really had to sort of like pull ourselves back in, rein ourselves in, because it's really fun to think of how you can, manipulate the resources, how you can screw everybody over with what you do, but you have to make sure it works with the game as well.
Yeah, so just to give you, for example, some of that we thought of, we mentioned how you move the resources around. Well, one of the variant actions would be you stack one resource on top of the other, and it hides the resource underneath it. So then when it moves as one, and you are actually moving 2 resources to somebody's coffer.
I see.
That you would then eventually get stuck with at the end of round scoring.
So you have to keep track and remember that everybody else has to remember that. Could you see it a little bit? I mean, that sounds like it might.
Yeah, you can see it a little bit. And that's another really cool thing about the game in general is that it's an open information game. There's no real aspect of like hiding. Everything's out in the open. When I play Corey, he's having to sort of distract me from, tell me, oh, why don't you go after that person when he's the one winning? Because it's super obvious that, who's got what score they are, what is inside their coffer. So it's an open information game, and it's a lot of fun.
It lends itself well for table talk. So when someone, you don't have a runaway leader, because what will happen is the 2 people remaining, or 3, will say, hey, he's going to win if we let him score points. Let's make sure he's the center so that we can catch up a little bit. So there's a lot of alliances getting created as the game moves on as well. Again, a full immersive community where you have to work together to move together.
Right.
I was going to
say,
it
is a puzzle because, there's also the possibility that everybody wins. I mean, I've actually never been in a game where more than 2 people win, but it's possible if you shift things around, do the puzzle correctly, that there'd be more than one winner. So depending on how you like to play, there's pretty much something for everybody.
All right. That's really cool. So plays 4 players. It's competitive, 20 minutes. Is there any information that you want to share before? Because I had some questions about your history with the Game Crafter. Is there any information that you wanted to share about the mechanics? Because I feel like...
I think the last thing I want to add is just...
go ahead.
It's kind of obvious. It's super portable, but I personally love taking this game to a coffee shop, to a bar, if that's what you're into, and just, you can pull it out and play it literally anywhere. It doesn't take up a lot of room, and it packs up easy, and it's fun. And I want to say, you can be super cerebral with it, or you can just be have a fun time and move things around and just create chaos. Both are fun.
Yep.
I like that it doesn't take a lot of table space, because you just mentioned something that's important to me is when I go out to eat, I like to have games that I bring with that are going to fit the table, but they're not going to take up a lot of table space. And so I'm glad that you brought that up. That's another thing that hooked me with the Hookbox game. It always gets me. There are some Hookbox games where, it has the full table spread. So that's great that this is not one of those that I could bring, like you said, throw in your pocket, bring it out to eat.
Yep. And we've done that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Let's see. So I wanted to kind of shift a little bit into the Game Crafter contest stuff, because I know you've mentioned to me that you've been involved in the Game Crafter for a while. So I'm curious to know how you first learned about the Game Crafter, and I know you were involved in one of the first contest, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah,
I mean, ever since I was child, I liked designing games with my brothers. We always did it. And then as I grew up and the internet became possible, I remember from day one looking for ways to get games printed. And I think I finally found one. And like I said, I think I might have been using, not quite in the beta years of the Game Crafter, but definitely early on. When I found it, I latched on immediately. I'm like, wow, this is super cool. I can literally print a game. It was way different back then. It was cards and boxes that had pre-printed words on them, but it immediately opened the world for me. And you alluded to the first contest, which was a playing card contest, where the Game Crafter was asking people to, hey, come up with a theme for playing cards. And I ultimately did. I came up with what I called Deck OS, the playing card operating system, where every card basically looks like a cell phone app.
I have it up on the screen.
So I also want to point out that the style of the background used to be different then. So now it does not work with the current theme of the Game Crafter. It's just a blue screen.
It is.
You could look at least.
Let's see what this looks like.
Oh
yeah, you're right. Let's see. Oh, look at that. Oh my gosh, that is so funny. It's a cell phone. Look at that. That is too funny. So it was just retheme it, or did you have to come up with a game for it?
Just a skin for a deck of cards.
Okay.
There wasn't a game involved back then.
That's so funny. Donnie, did you know about the Game Crafter that long ago, or how did you find about the Game Crafter?
I found out about it through Corey about maybe 2-3 years ago, 2016, I think. Before then, I did not have any sort of idea or inkling that such a service could exist. It's still kind of amazing when you think about it, because I show people like Capital Vices, and they're like, "You made this?"
Yeah, who made that? Where'd you get it?
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's a great service. I mean, we've used them for games. We've used them to make business cards, even. So it's very versatile.
That's great.
Service.
So have you two? Is this your first co-design together?
No, this is our second. Well, I mean, this was our first. Sorry.
Yeah.
We have more than one since then.
Right.
Okay.
This was our first, though.
Cool. You excited? So this is your first Kickstarter that's coming out?
Definitely our first Kickstarter coming out. Yeah.
So yeah, we wanted to take a game that we knew that we in producing, and that's why we're using the Game Crafter. Take a light risk, not super risky. It's a low barrier of entry. The cost is just right, and we think we can do a good job with it because we have all the tools in place. We've done all the work, and we're ready to try it out.
Yeah, the page looks great actually, and it sounds like you've taken a lot of time to think about, like, when you were explaining all of the mechanics and how you had to cut out some of the bad ones. It's like, well, you've been messing with this for a while. It sounds like It sounds like you're ready. And there's a huge market for the 18 card game, just like the small card games. Is it like its own genre? I don't know, but there's definitely some, because there's wallet games out there, and now there's the Hookbox game. So, and people love being able to just throw a game in their pocket and take it and go. So I think that you've got a good market looking for games like this. So I have my fingers crossed for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think that's really all I had to talk about. Did you have anything that you wanted to bring up about the game before we call it a night and you have to go to bed and wake up and press a launch button?
Right. Sleepless nights tonight. No, we're just thankful for this opportunity, and we're hopeful that people come out, because we really do think that we have a good game here and that people will enjoy it, and it's something special, and we feel really good about it.
Yeah.
And your price point is just like, you can't say no to it. It's $7, I think I saw, is what your price point is.
That's right.
And then it's plus shipping, I believe.
Yeah.
Right.
Plus shipping.
So, I mean, I think in the United States it comes out to like $10, something like that, and that's like nothing for a game. So I don't know. I think it's like
right in the day and age where people are spending $100 on Kickstarters. We're hoping that we can slide in there.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's going to do good. I don't think that you're going to have any problems. And like I said, I think that there's a great market for 18 card games, and it sounds like you've taken a lot of time and and thought and invested into it. So I'm excited. And the game's been around for a while since you entered it into a contest. So obviously I think you're ready. I think that's going to be good.
Right.
All right. Well, that's all I had for everybody. Did you want to say anything about the game before I let you go, like a quick elevator pitch?
You know what? This game is fun no matter what, whether it's trying to be virtuous or making your neighbors sin.
It sounds good. I'm excited for it. I'm excited especially because you have a solo version, and I find myself playing alone a lot of the time. So at least I'll have something to play.
Yes.
All right,
Thank
great.
you so much, both of you, for coming on the show. And I'm going to keep my eyes peeled for tomorrow when you press the launch button. And I hope everybody that watched today's episode is going to take a look at Capital Vices tomorrow. And if you have any questions about it, you know who to ask. It would be these two gents right here. All right. That was Crowd Chat with Cassie. I'll see everybody next week at 6 o'clock Eastern Time. Corey and Donnie, thank you both for coming on the show. And I hope you have a great night and sleep.
Thanks.
You too.
Thanks. Good night, everybody.